So you have the unique distinction of being one among three people who went from tea tasting to advertising. Why is that a thing?
I mean, it's a legit job.
It's not marketing.
It's
It is a
not
legit job.
marketing. It is. I've met some great lalas, yeah, and I've met some really bad ones.
I don't want to hear about the good ones for sure. Tell me about the bad ones.
Right? And for me, when the lines blur between who the marketing team is and who the agency team is, that's when you have a banging client-agency relationship. At the end of the day, it's commercial art. You're doing something, it has to sell fucking biscuits, right? And you're not doing it on your own money. Somebody's paying for you to tell yourself you're a genius. That's absolute rubbish. I really think advertising has become less interesting. I mean, everybody's chasing that one silver bullet, which doesn't exist. Somebody will come put all their budgets into IPL and then for the next, and then they'll say, the brand ko kuch nahi hua hai. Got a big spike in IPL, but after that, nothing happened.
When you say build a culture that makes creativity thrive, I've heard this a lot. What does it actually mean? What are three things it means? Hey Rajiv, first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Yes, thank you for having me.
Good to see you after such a long time. You still look the same.
Oh my God. No.
How's your toddler treating you?
She's keeping me looking the same. That's the reason why, I'm trying to clean up a bit, but yeah.
I wish I could say the same. but anyways, we were just talking before this. So you have the unique distinction of being one among three people who went from tea tasting to advertising.
Yes.
Who are the other two? And why is that a thing?
To my knowledge, the other two that I know of are Nirvik Singh of Grey and Mr. Piyush Pandey himself. And there's me.
August company.
I would say so. There's a lot to travel to get to that level, but yeah, sure.
But how is that? And why tea tasting? How did that happen?
It happened by accident. Yeah. I had a friend whose father was in that company, and it seemed very fancy, and all the people were boarding school products, so I kind of fit right in. After my college, took an interview, and then I learned on the job. After getting the job, I learned on the job, and I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and then I got really bored.
How much of it is legit and how much of it is just hogwash? Because when you go to wine tastings and all, like obviously I really pretend the hell out of it, but meko kuch samajh nahi aa raha tha.
I mean, it's not hogwash at all, at least for tea.
Luck is what you like to believe.
No, I mean in the sense that it's not like wine. You're not appealing to connoisseurship. I used to sell tea, which was the kind of tea that you drink at the tapri. So that's also sold by us. I mean, when I was in tea. And then you have the 30,000 rupees a kilo sort of teas, which is comparable with wine tasting, I would guess. But I mean, it's a legit job. It's a legit job, and it's not easy.
It's not marketing. It is a legit job.
It is. Yeah. Now we'll come to marketing being legit in a bit. Don't get me started yet.
Yeah. So you segued into advertising, and we won't ask you how things started. Of course, I think folks would have talked to you already. I want to just start from the most recent thing, and the thing that I really want you to share a lot of value with people is Tilt was one of the biggest success stories in terms of starting an agency of recent times, right?
Yeah.
Some amazing work. I spoke to you when you were just starting out, initially when you were signing on your first set of clients, to the kind of size and scale and the body of work which you guys eventually ended up producing. So in light of all of that, we have a lot of people who probably dream of starting an agency at some point, are probably already doing it and looking to get to the next level. What have you learned about building an agency, building a culture, getting on the first set of clients? Just tell us what's the secret sauce?
See, I think the first set of clients, we were lucky. I mean, we were not youngsters starting off. I mean, Joe, who was the principal founder of Tilt, he was group CEO of the Lowe Lintas group, very seasoned advertising professional. There was Sriram, there was me. So we had done our time in the network agency, so we knew the clients. So when we started out and we reached out to some of the clients, we at least got an audience. And that was based on the reputation that we had built for many, many years before. So that was an advantage for us. We weren't freshers straight out of college trying to build something. So that was, I would say, an unfair advantage to us. when compared to some of the other bright young kids who are just starting their journey as advertising founders. Uh, in terms of building a place, I mean, we are hardwired to be about effective work. We never chased awards. We never entered awards. And that's hard built into us as professionals. We didn't also care much about PR. We didn't go out saying we are the next big thing, we are the next best thing. There are a lot of agencies who do that.
Why is that? Just let's delve deeper into it. What made you feel that you don't need to do that?
Well, honestly, sometimes we wondered whether we should do it, but I just think that we're all very shy people. We don't like to be in the limelight. Actually, the work should speak for itself. And many times when some of the more famous work from Tilt came out, a lot of clients said, "Oh, you guys did. We never heard of you. We've seen the work."
Wow.
And actually, we were very happy with that because, I mean, when you start something when you're all in your early 40s, you don't need that validation that you're such a cat, you're building such a great thing. The work needs to do well for the client, that's all.
But if you were 25 and you didn't have the wealth of experience or the network, what would be your first steps be like?
It's a very difficult question because when I was 25, I was very brash. I'm a very different man now. And, I mean, we've met earlier and you would remember there was a brashness.
There was quite a bit of brashness.
So I'm happy to say that has sort of gone away most of the time.
No, but that's what defined, right? Like I remember you being able to call a spade and just say no. And sometimes that's just what you need from a partner.
Sure, I just do that a little more politely now. Yeah, so I would still say it's, I mean, there are a lot of youngsters who are starting off agencies that are doing really well. And I think, again, it comes down to that very fundamental thing in advertising. It's always about the work.
Yeah.
No amount of showmanship can take away from the fact that the work is the most important thing. There's nothing beyond that.
But it's like a chicken and egg, right? When you're just starting out, and I'm going to talk on behalf of the 25-year-old listening to this. How do you attract your first set of great minds as employees when you don't even have work to speak of?
Well, one way to do it is to proactively pitch. If you have ideas, I mean, go meet some people, keep pitching. At worst, they'll say no, right? But anyway, you've got nothing to lose. But I think the energy to keep pitching is critical when you're starting off and you don't have a network you can tap into. So you should show your enthusiasm and your chops by just putting some work out there proactively. That's one way to do it for sure.
Even if it's pro bono.
I mean, nobody should do pro bono unless it's, something for society at a larger level.
Yeah.
But if somebody's going to gain out of it, somebody should be paid for it. I mean, otherwise it becomes very one-sided in terms of the value that's brought to the table.
Can't agree more. I feel very strongly about it, and I that's one of my pet peeves is people inviting, especially younger agencies, to pitch, and then kind of not according the same level of respect, especially when they're younger kids just trying to make it, who kind of don't have the same bargaining power of somebody who's on the other side of the table. A lot of mis-selling which kind of happens. There's a lot of misaligned expectations which kind of happen. Yeah. So how should a agency founder kind of sidestep that? Because
I think you have to prep really hard for what now we call the procurement department. Unfortunately, over the last decade or so, what I've seen is creativity seems to have been commoditized. There is no premium placed on a brain that can think slightly different from you. And honestly, a lot of marketers want an external party to validate what they are saying.
Yeah.
So, I've been through a lot of situations where marketers will say, this is what it is. And then if you say, actually, this is not what it is, they take offense. But, I think the most fundamental job of an agency partner is to be truthful to the client. whether it's about the product, whether it's about their service. If you don't hold that mirror of truth, then you're just, there's no point pandering. And that's what I've realized. You're not going to win the respect of the client. Sometimes telling a client that this is incorrect may in the short term cause a few flutters, but in the long term, you will have that marketer's respect.
What's the thing you've learned about dealing with the MBAs, right? Like people on the client side who come in with the answer. And when in most cases, you've been on the brand longer and have a better context of the brand's journey. But sometimes they're these, let's just call them irritants, right? Irritants along the way who would come in with the answer and say, hey, this is the kind of way we want to do it. How do you solve that tactfully?
See, practically speaking, it's a business which is a buyer-seller model, right? And it is on the seller to convince the buyer that what they are selling is worth their purchase. That's fundamentally the truth. Then there are emotional angles, like you were mentioning. I have been on this brand for 10 years. How can you come in and say? I would just say, I think collaboration and listening is very important. And see, at the end of the day, we all work for the brand. Whether you're on that side of the table as a marketer or this side of the table as an agency, your allegiance is only to that brand. Everybody works for that brand. And therefore, if you are saying something which is in contradiction to what the brand manager or the marketing head believes to be true, the onus is equally on you to prove that what you're saying makes sense. Otherwise, it's तूने बोला, मैंने बोला, मुझे लगता है, तुझे लगता है. Then it's a futile exercise. It goes nowhere.
True.
The consumer validation is a great way to. I mean, it's happened many times, right from early on in my career, where a marketing person would not agree with me, and I would just take it to the consumer and come back with the feedback and say, you know what, you lose, I win, or I lose, you win, and I'll go rework this. And there's absolutely no shame in that.
Yeah. What's the worst and most frustrating part of building an agency?
What's the worst and most frustrating part?
Yeah. Of building or scaling an agency.
They're two different things.
Yeah. Tell me both separately.
You know, building an agency, whether it's your own or whether you are at a managerial level at a network agency, for example, you're still building that agency, right? And there is a difference in ambition that happens. And ambition is very personal. My ambition when I was at a network agency was very different to what my ambition was for Tilt and what my ambition is for my new venture, which is ZeroFifty. And that's also because I have sort of grown and changed as a person. And like I said, ambition is very personal. Nobody else can tell you how ambitious you should be. And so at one point in time, it's absolutely fine to be ambitious about top lines, revenues, the width of clients, global presence, awards. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But at this stage in my career, it's more about doing meaningful work and going deep. So that desire to get 50 clients on board, it's not there anymore. I'd be happy with 5 clients as long as I can solve whatever marketing can solve or advertising can solve for them. That's the way it has evolved. So that's both the best part and the most frustrating part, because at the end of the day, I've always said this, no agency wants to go out and do mediocre work, right? You need to find those clients who will believe that courage who will have the courage to buy an idea which may make them slightly uncomfortable. I'm seeing that school of marketers is reducing.
Yeah.
I mean, they may be being replaced by young founders. Many founders believe that they will change the world. But marketing is not a simple, easy task, right? But the irony is that you have to simplify it, right? Because you'll be thrown with shitloads of information. Whether it's at a consumer level, whether it's at a product level, whether it's at a media level, there'll just be shitloads thrown at you all the time. A great agency guy is someone who can, sort of sift through that and say, these are the 3 things that are relevant for you. There is often a lot of resistance from marketers to say, include this as well. So that's the most frustrating part. When you're in in a larger setup, you have enough number of people, the width of the team and the depth of each department is enough to go through that. For a new startup such as ours, I believe it's best to avoid those layers as we go along. And I just seem to find more layers every day, unless it's with a founder directly, which I love.
I really like that part when you said, when you're, I think the word on ambition, and I'm going to like double click on that. And when you're doing it within a network, when you're doing it personally, uh, say somebody is looking for a creative partner, right? And there are two places, and of course both of them have their own pitches and stuff like that. But then I believe that a network agency versus somebody who's worked in a network agency, taken the best and the worst of that, and then kind of moved on to build their own thing. There's pluses and minuses of both. So how should a founder kind of just look at things which fundamentally can't be compared, but are giving them similar services?
I think it boils down to economics.
Economics. Fair.
Because an agency, apart from the processes and all of that, which are great, some of the network agencies have great processes in place to ensure that should something go wrong, there are checks and balances for that. You sometimes don't have that in a startup agency such as the one that I'm a part of now.
Yeah.
But the truth is, for any marketer, it's luck of the draw, because it depends on the person and the team, because advertising is a very human business.
True.
So if the person across the table from you, on both sides, if they don't click, it sounds like a cliche, but if they don't click, it's going to be, you're up shit creek without a paddle. It's not going to work. So therefore, it doesn't matter who you go to. Obviously, the larger agencies have teams and all of that, but it'll always depend on who that person is. I know that a lot of the so-called independent agencies are charging as much, if not more, than the larger agencies. And that's because many people are seeing that the person across the table is the person who can help me in this journey.
Economics. That's a good answer. I quite like that. I think now is the right time to ask you about, considering all of these things that we spoke about, the micro frustrations of kind of building and scaling, the kind of expectations that you have from marketers as well as from founders, and you deal with a lot of them on a daily basis, and through the years you have. At what point did you decide that, hey, now it's time for me to do the journey again, but in a slightly different way? And tell us about what you're doing next.
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember Sriram. You've worked with him, of course. Sriram, Gangs and me, we've started another outfit called ZeroFifty Media Works.
I know I've asked you this earlier. Tell me about why is it ZeroFifty?
It's also the core principle of simplifying things.
This is not the answer you gave me last time.
It is called ZeroFifty because that's the pin code where all three of us live and work out of.
Not elitist at all. Which is the pin code of what place in the country?
It's a place called Bandra in Bombay.
Okay, never heard of it. It's fine. But yeah, please go. Please
go. No, it's not elitist. We travel to small cafes there. We work out of there. We have chai. It's got a creative vibe to that place. So it's not the elitist part of it that.
No, I'm kidding. So, but why did you feel there's a need to now do this in a certain way that you're now trying to do it?
Like I said earlier, it comes down to what is the ambition that you have for yourself, for the organization that you want to build, and the organization that you're going to be giving disproportionate amount of time of your time to. So between Sriram, Gangs, and myself, we wanted to go deep rather than wide, because we've already lived a life where we went wide. We've done that, and that was great. And agencies that are doing that, fantastic. But that's not what appeals to me anymore. I would rather do lesser amount of work on a lesser number of clients,
but deeper interventions.
And that's the model that I think we're going after.
Very cool. Very cool. I really think that's quite interesting. So just tell me, what would be a no for you, considering with the kind of privilege of experience that you now have of having done this a bunch of times, what would be a definite no in the new place?
I don't think we want to build a place where we would be the agency for all clients, or all clients would want us as the agency. We don't. It's okay to not vibe. That's fine. But if you don't vibe, don't work together. And what I mean by that is that, first of all, whoever the marketer is should be able to appreciate and value what our agency brings to the table. Preconceived notions of, but this agency did this and that agency did that. I don't give a flying fuck about that. You're welcome to go to those agencies. But if you have respect at a human level, at a professional level, for what is being brought on the table, who the people are, sure, let's have a chat.
That's an important point.
Yeah.
A lot of marketers also watch what we put out. So I want to say, what's a great client and what's a bad client? If
I'll just stick to what a great client is.
I want you to spend time on what a bad client is also. Because, say, somebody who's a 28-year-old brand manager is probably imbibing a lot of the things which his bosses are doing without having the knowledge or the privilege of understanding that some of these are not great things to learn. So what's a good and a bad client?
I mean, I'll just say what a good client is, because the opposite of that would anyway become a bad client, right?
Fair.
So, first and foremost, a good client is someone who treats the agency as a partner. See, unfortunately, the word agency means you're an agent. You're working on behalf of someone.
Yeah.
So, I have had the privilege of actually working with some marketers who, if they were not in the room, the meeting wouldn't get derailed, because the people on the agency side had gotten so much love and respect that they felt empowered enough to act on the client's behalf, right? And for me, when the lines blur between who the marketing team is and who the agency team is, that's when you have a banging client-agency relationship. And this client agency words by themselves, they're rooted in the fact that someone's buying, someone's selling. A marketer who believes that an agency person is a partner, and of course the agency person has to really earn that respect. You can't come and say, I'm your agency, treat me like a partner. Fuck off.
True.
And I've seen this work very, very effectively. If there is an equality in the relationship, and sometimes in my career I insisted on that equality, it just works better for the brand.
Yeah.
Because you have two people, hopefully they'll be bright minds, and they're both debating with each other instead of fighting with each other.
Yeah.
Right? Ideally, you're meant to be in the same corner. But I've seen many instances through my career where it felt like I'm in one corner, the marketer is in another corner, somebody stole something, who's pissed somebody else off. And those are great things, they're great fun things, that they make great stories.
Yeah.
You and I have had such stories. So
it's always fun.
Yeah, it's always fun. But at the end of the day, both parties need to believe that they're working for the same goal, and they have each other's backs covered.
Yeah.
Right? So when you go out and celebrate and have a drink because you won an FE or a can or whatever, you should also be able to do that if your campaign fucked up. Right? वो सुख में दारू पीना is one thing, but जो दुख में दारू पीता है साथ में, then that's a client relationship.
That's a partner.
Yeah, that's a partner.
Because you succeed and then you fuck up and then you won up.
Yeah, and fuck-ups will happen. Who doesn't fuck up?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Tell me one person in this world who's not fucked up.
And in the marketing fraternity, we have a sizable, generous chunk of those fuck-ups. Tell me, when you speak to founders, right, and I'm sure you have the advantage of speaking to a lot of them. A lot of them are younger, high energy, well-funded. There's a certain preconceived notion, expectation that they come with what marketing is supposed to do, what a partner is supposed to do. And by virtue of their probable lack of exposure to this world, some of those might be a little misaligned, which leads to slightly frustrating experiences for marketers joining that kind of a team, or partners trying to work with that kind of a brand. Tell me some kind of experiences there. Like, how do you figure out? Now I'm sure you've developed a sense of smell that okay, ye founder to nahi chalega, boss.
I have, and I'll tell you. So it's taken me a bit of the journey's been a long one. Because earlier I would go like, what is he saying? Like, what the fuck? Go do your homework and come back. And then I realized, as I spent more time in the business, that if you really want a partnership, then it's your fucking responsibility to ensure that he understands what you're saying. For example, if my own partner in my own business doesn't understand what I'm saying, am I dealing with the founder in a similar way that I would deal with my partner? Am I explaining it to him in a way that I would explain it to someone within my own organization? Because that's a partnership. You can't demand and expect a partnership and not do it yourself. So I've become that guy who takes now the time to not get frustrated. Like I told you, I've grown up.
No, but when you're having a first meeting, how do you know, like at the end of that 1 hour meeting, that this is a founder who'll get it? Who'll probably, there's something here for us to offer. Of course, there's something for you to offer, but there's something for him to accept that, hey, this is the right solution that somebody's telling me. Maybe marketing is not as easily learnable as what I think it is.
See, I'm not here to teach him marketing.
Fair.
Right? And who am I? He's a founder of a business. He's probably brighter than I am. I'm here to do my work, which is to deliver to what he has hired me for. It's impossible to tell in the first meeting. Therefore, I like to take 2 or 3 meetings to understand where this is going. Because some people are extremely polite in their first meeting, and that doesn't help. And some people find the need to show who's boss in the first meeting. That doesn't help either. But it's the way you would deal with any human being, right?
Yeah.
Between us, it took us a journey from being client agency to then being friends and colleagues, and developing respect for what the other person does, and that's a journey, and you can't do that in the first meeting. I don't think so. So it takes a bit of a time.
But if there's Lala companies where it's slightly even like another level of being tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I've met some great Lalas, and I've met some really bad ones.
I don't want to hear about the good ones for sure. Tell me about the bad ones.
I mean, it's the whole thing, ना. हमें पता है, हम कह रहे हैं, आप कर दो.
हमने बनाया.
ब्रांड ये होता है, एडवर्टाइजिंग ये करना चाहिए, ये होना. So they've checked into an idea of what they think advertising is, and if you don't lean into that idea, then you're an idiot. And honestly, I don't like it when people call me an idiot. So I walk away from that relationship. But Lalas and I mean, using the term Lala in the way that you've prompted me to use it. But
did you notice that the moment I said Lala and you were transliterating, you switched to Hindi? That says a lot about the Lala cliche.
No, but I think some of the so-called Lalas have an innate sense of wisdom, man. I don't think anybody knows this country better than them.
Can't agree more.
Typically now they are the older generation. You know what I'm saying? So they are usually the fathers or the grandfathers in the family business.
Yeah.
But they are the guys who built it.
Yeah.
Right? And ours is not an easy country to build a business in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very difficult. So I have a lot of regard for them.
For good Lalas.
Yeah, as long as they have regard for what I bring to the table.
But what do you think about Nepo kids of Lalas?
I mean, I have met a bunch of people who've come from NYU and joined the board without spending a day doing the hard work. And it's good for them. They've come from a place of privilege and they've inherited that privilege. But
how frustrating is that?
It is, but it's that's what I'm saying. Now I can choose to walk away from it because my ambition is not let me get every client that I can. So, I mean, like I said, I'm nobody to say, you should do this. It's not my company. It's not my business in the first place. All I can do is walk away from that. Say, you're not for me. I'm not for you.
Tell me, what have you learned about hiring and more importantly, retaining great creative talent?
See, one thing I have, and this is not a cliche. It's something that I've actually identified amongst some of the best creative people that I've met. Don't corporatize them.
What do you mean?
I mean, don't ask them to come in, put their thumb in a biometric by 10 a.m. or cut 3 days of leave or 10 days of leave. And I know why it has to be done, because if it's not done, then everybody will take advantage of it. And there are enough people like that. But I think a good business manager realizes, it's like a general who realizes what the artillery is, right? It's on actually the guy running the business, and a lot of agencies are run by creative people as well. But it is for them to realize who their greatest assets are and promote a culture that breeds creativity. And because ours is a service business, sometimes that's very difficult, especially if your scale is big. You sometimes have to take on clients that you typically wouldn't be very proud to talk about. And we were talking, right? Everybody talks about their best clients.
Yeah.
But actually, I think an agency culture is defined by
The worst.
the worst client.
The last client which you really
that
didn't
you
want.
really want to hide away.
Yeah.
And the work you really want to hide away. If you want to hide away that work, why are you doing it? You're doing it because it's the economics of it. A great creative culture is the core of any agency.
True.
Right? You can't make it too straitjacketed because our business flourishes on out-of-the-box thinking, and you can't get that if you're put in a box. That's a coffin then.
But when you say build a culture that makes creativity thrive, I've heard this a lot. What does it actually mean? What are 3 things it means?
One, make time for fun.
Not like HR fun.
Not HR fun.
Pizza manga ke rangoli karenge. It's like actual fun.
Yeah,
Okay, fair.
I remember a lot of my friendships in the industry were built on going and watching plays, going to see music concerts. See, advertising is a strange profession actually. Like all the things that you love in life somehow come together. They form into an idea, and that starts paying for your livelihood. So it's actually a privilege. I mean, if you love reading, if you love traveling, if you love music, if you love to play an instrument, at a subliminal level, I feel they all sort of start feeding, and that's what comes out. The best advertising guys are guys who have the power to connect dots, and one dot may be something that you experienced when you were 10 years old with a dot that you experienced 3 days ago, and then somehow connect them, because all the data and information is out there. Great advertising guys are great receptors. You know exactly what falls into place.
To make time for fun. That's an important one.
And you know, that sort of fun is actually at a subliminal level, it's training. I remember it was a very big thing for even account managers when I first joined advertising to watch the entire can show reel and then work backwards on what could have been the brief.
Wow, it's a good exercise.
Yeah. At the face of it, you're watching the best ads in the world. What great fun. But what you take away from it is what could have led to that ad. And that's the sort of fun I'm talking about. If we're discussing movies outside of work, advertising is a place that allows you to bring that knowledge and actually craft it into something that you can use for someone. A lot of the time I've seen now that doesn't happen. It's become a very fleeting sort of thing. I mean, nobody has the patience to go through a 90-minute film, you know, or hear a full album. I don't know. The last time, I think the only people who will discuss music albums, maybe people our age, or, you know, maybe a few here and there, but it's now become about this one song or this chart topper. But there is a discipline that comes, and it's a creative discipline. I don't think creativity is about being maverick. It is actually being able to harness that discipline of this vast amount of information. So anything that you do in your company that systemizes that. I mean, I remember when I was much younger, we used to have a Friday film club where different people would just come with their favorite film, talk about it, why it's their favorite film, and play it. And that was every Friday.
Wow.
That's what I mean by a creative culture.
So that's fun. That's bringing in other disciplines into your work and trying to solve somebody's problem using the wealth of experiences that you have, while also finding ways to express yourself through any of these art forms.
Because I strongly believe advertising as a profession actually feeds off whatever you learn outside the office. What you do outside the office, what you learn outside the office, what you observe outside the office is what makes your work in the office great. The second thing I would say is fear. I think the agency business has become a place where there seems to be some amount of fear. Client chala jayega, client gussa ho jayega. I don't think that helps either party. Nothing great has come out of fear, right? So I think the less you are afraid to let a business go, the more you are sending the signal that the people in your organization matter.
That's a good line. Quite like it.
Yeah,
Just double click on it. Tell me more. What do you mean by this bravado?
it's not bravado, like I have myself been guilty. There was a time in my career when a big client asked me to change the account manager, who was and the typical pressures. It's a big client, can't piss him off. And I did change that account manager, and fuck, I hate that. I hate I did that. I shouldn't have done that. But at that point in time, the absolute call was not mine. I had the relative call. I had the call to change or not change. The absolute call of whether the repercussions of that mattered to the agency or didn't matter to the agency was not my call. Fortunately, I am now in a position where I can take that call, and I would go to the extent to state that your own people matter more than any business or account, because accounts will come and go. Anyway, the industry is like plagued with a lack of talent, right? We are all talking about that.
Yeah.
So if you've got good talent across any function, even if it's the person who does your accounting or your finances, hold on to them. It's not easy to come by good people anymore who are still passionate about the business itself.
But if you come by certain people who are really good, what I've heard from people is that like a lot of people in advertising are like the archetype of being a misunderstood genius. क्या मेरे को बनाना था French noir, but मैं बना रहा हूँ biscuit का ad. There's a micro frustration in that person's being overall. How do you control that, solve for aspirations while also ensuring that you're able to deliver?
अगर French cinema बनाना है, you should go and make French cinema.
हम तो बिस्किट का ad बना रहे हैं.
हम बिस्किट का ad बना रहे हैं. And I think some of the greatest creative people in advertising are those who understand and embrace that. Right? At the end of the day, it's commercial art. You're doing something, it has to sell fucking biscuits, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, and you're not doing it on your own money. Somebody's paying for you to tell yourself you're a genius. That's absolute rubbish. And I don't think, if you look at all the top creative directors in the country today, I think they're great in having accepted that their job is not to make a Satyajit Ray film. Of course, their job is to make advertising that breaks clutter, that is brave, that puts out something into culture. I mean, earlier advertising used to put a lot into culture. Somewhere down the line, it started just borrowing from culture. And now, if it's out there, it'll be in advertising. Earlier, it was the reverse. If it was in advertising, it was out there. People would say advertising slogans.
Yeah.
So
Still do.
I mean, rarely.
Not as much.
Not as much.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I really think advertising has become less interesting. Even the ads that you see, everybody's chasing that one silver bullet, which doesn't exist. Somebody will come put all their budgets into IPL, and then and then they'll say, the brand ko kuch nahi hua hai. We got a big spike in IPL, but after that, nothing happened. So,
every time you've heard that, how many times have you heard that?
Yeah, I'm saying, what are you doing for the rest of the thing? And it has to be interesting. Every little thing that you do has to be interesting. And again, that is solely driven by the client, the marketer.
When would you decide to not do a certain thing for a client? Like what would kind of trigger that sixth sense that, hey, this is not what the brand needs. It needs something else. And this is when I'll put my foot down.
If I were to say that only I know what the brand needs, it would be a very foolish thing for me to say.
Very cool.
I don't have that sort of brains. कि मुझे ही पता है कि क्या है correct brand के लिए. So usually the way that I work is it's far more collaborative. The Shriram gangs, they are very different people from me. But we all come collectively and we sort of agree on something and we include the marketer in that. So before we jump into script kya hai, we spend a lot of time saying what is the problem we are trying to address. And here are 5 or 6 different ways in which to attack this problem. So we don't do that. मुझे लगता है कि ऐसा करना चाहिए. Because तुम हो कौन यार? मतलब you might be a great advertising guy, but how do you guarantee and I'm putting down so much money, how do you guarantee? Anyway, there are no guarantees in advertising. But if there is a collective understanding of what is correct and that is consumer validated, then it's easier to sort of go out and then hope it works. Because most of the advertising stories are all the legendary stories are all in hindsight. It's all in hindsight.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who can say, this is going to work. You may feel it, but how do you know?
And we add a layer of romanticism also, no, to nostalgia of something that would have worked earlier. कि अभी hit हो गया तो ठीक है, then you say हाँ, I know, मेरे को लग रहा था होगा. But then you have the lens of retrospective vision.
I mean, with no due respect, with due respect, there is no place for nostalgia or romanticism.
True.
You know, you're doing a business on behalf of somebody else. Somebody's trusting you and your judgment. Just be acutely aware of that, and don't let your own sort of understanding of what worked, it may not work again. So I think what we try to do is explore many different things and eliminate. So the principle of elimination works wonders sometimes. Because I don't know, at least I have not been able to find that one silver bullet that solves the problem. It's always iterative.
Very interesting. I quite like it. There's a lot of agencies now. Actually, not a lot. There are few who are now taking a very different route, kind of getting their skin into the game, taking equity bets in kind of the clients that they work on. What's your take on that?
I think it's great. I think at least it's an evolving business model, because our business model hasn't evolved in the last, 50 years. I think the first change that happened was commission to fee.
Yeah.
That was the first nail in the coffin. And then the fees just started getting lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser. But it was still a fee-based thing. And now, at least this for me is it's a more worthy way to do it. Because if you're saying that, if agencies have always believed that they bring a lot of value, right? This is an opportunity for them to show that by putting their money where their mouth is, they believe that they bring a lot of value.
You would do it?
I would 100% do it. I would do it.
How would you figure out if this is the one?
I mean, I would do due diligence. I would perhaps come to someone like you. But I would certainly do a lot of due diligence to see what is the potential, what is the market size, what is the upside, who are the current investors, who's the founder. Is he a decent fellow? Or
so much about the founder.
Yeah, it's absolutely about the founder. You know.
And if that checks, you'll be able to put your neck on the line and say that, hey, I own the part of the upside as well as the downside.
Absolutely.
More agencies should be doing that, right?
I think they are. I think some of the newer indies are certainly doing that.
And your encouragement.
I'm in encouragement. If the opportunity is right, then yeah.
I quite like that. So, tell me, I'm just getting a lot of concentrated wisdom in this, but tell me, if you have to like close it out and just talk about, say, somebody who's in their hostel listening to this, young, wants to take the first step in the next 90 days, build something of meaning. Everybody has lofty ideals on, hey, this is how I think this should be solved, and I could have done this better, and that's great, that's amazing. How do they bring that into life? What are steps that they can take in the next 90 days to bring that alive?
See, first figure out if you want to be in advertising.
What's a good touchstone to do that? How would you de-glamorize it, first of all?
I would say you have to be your own worst enemy, because it is not an easy profession to be in. Right? If you're in it, it's because you love the fact that you get to create some form of art that moves business. Right? I mean, art and business have been together forever, right? All artists did good business. All successful artists do good business. This is also a form of commercial art. The key differentiator here is you're working with somebody else's commission. Somebody has commissioned this for you. And therefore, the opinion on whether this happens or not is always with the person who's commissioning the project. You must have it in you to face rejection over and over and over again and have the stamina to keep bouncing back with ideas that at least you are proud of. If you're not that sort of a person, don't join advertising. It's a waste of time. It's an absolute waste of time. If you are, I would say thick-skinned to a certain extent, and you are a student of human culture, go for it. Whether you succeed or not, that only time will tell. Nobody could predict anybody's success or failure. Like I said, it's all in retrospect and hindsight. But there are some of the common traits that I've seen across the many legends that I've had the opportunity to work with. They've always had this. There's a sense of curiosity. ऐसे करते हैं, वैसे हो सकता है क्या? They are great observers of culture. They have great memory. They remember childhood. मेरे बचपन में ऐसा होता था. Before you know it, that becomes an ad. They remember the candy floss guy 2 lanes down, and that becomes an ad. So the ability to pick from this universe of time and convert that into consumer-facing communication, that is the magic.
So I'm going to connect different answers that you gave. The first is have thick skin. Your ability to bring in experiences from all your interests outside of advertising, childhood experiences, art, whatever else that you like, into solving a commercial problem. Having the gall to say no when you truly believe in something. You also talked about just going out and pitching to people as many as you can, especially when you're firstly starting out. So that would be probably the fourth thing that a person starting out should do.
If you're a youngster starting
If you're a youngster, yeah.
If you're starting out at an age where I am, and you're still going out pitching like crazy, then obviously the last 20 years have not been that great.
So, thick skin, keep pitching, bring the outside in or the inside out, howsoever you want to jargonize it. And do you advise a career in tea tasting to start with?
Why not?
It's
a great beverage. It's of course.
Chai walas are doing quite good of late, so why not? We would advise that.
Chai walas are doing great.
Perfect. So I'm really excited to see what the new shop does. For people who want to get in touch, have a conversation with you, what's the best way to do that?
Email me.
Just email you. We'll put your email in the description.
Yes, please do that.
But since you were very specific, what kind of problems are you looking to get your hands dirty with now?
I'll tell you what excites me the most. Either you are a brand that's in trouble. तुम irrelevant हो गए हो. Only 60 plus people speak of it fondly, and the next generation of consumers don't even know who you are. So that problem, or it's blue sky. You have a great product, and I mean a product, not yet another product. Right?
Product.
A product, yeah. And then how do we shake things up, taking that product to market? These two things. So one is reinvention and one is blue sky.
Very interesting.
So these two things are things that get me really excited.
Amazing meaty problems, like for you as well as any marketer, actually.
So at ZeroFifty, that's what we want to do right now, right? So, and I think we would have both the legacy corporates as well as the young founders covered, because largely the most important marketing problems would fall into one of these two.
Yeah, I love this. Thank you so much, Rajiv.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited to see what the new shop does. I'm sure we'll be doing another one in a few years where we'll be talking about actually exactly the same questions, but with the benefit of
hindsight. Hopefully the answers would have changed.
I'm sure the answers will change. Thank you so much, man. Lovely
Thank you for having me, man. It's good to reconnect after such a long time.
Thank you.